The 17 Years, Part 8. We now transition into the time of the death of Saint Annibale Maria di Francia, which occurred June 1st, 1927. On page 54 of the booklet, we see Saint Annibale Maria di Francia at rest. Below that picture, we read the inscription, Saint Annibale Maria di Francia died on June 1st, 1927, comforted by a vision of the Blessed Virgin Mary, whom he so dearly loved. We heard about that vision in the ending of Part 7. Below this, we see a picture of the banner of Saint Annibale Maria di Francia, which hung on the day of his canonization at the Vatican. We also read the inscription for this picture as, on October 7th, 1990, he was declared blessed by Holy Father, Pope now Saint John Paul II. And on May 16th, 2004, in Rome, in St. Peter's Square, Pope now Saint John Paul II proclaimed Father Annibale saint. Volume 22, June 1st, 1927. Recall that this is the date of Saint Annibale's death. How Jesus knows how to make all miracles except for that of separating from his own will. Sorrow because of the death of Father de Francia. The good of the one who puts the truths he has known into practice. Jesus allows her to see that blessed soul and speaks to her about him. I was feeling very afflicted, not only because of the privations of my sweet Jesus, but also because I had received the unexpected news of the death of Reverend Father de Francia. He was the only one left to me, to whom I could open my poor soul. How well he could understand me. It was to a saint that I would entrust myself, who had very much comprehended all the value of what Jesus had told me about the divine will. He had so much interest in it that with insistence he had taken all the writings with himself in order to publish them. So I was thinking to myself, after Jesus allowed that he would take the writings with himself, to my great sacrifice, because I did not want it, and only because he was a saint I had to surrender. And now Jesus has taken him to heaven. I felt myself being tortured because of the pain. But Fiat, Fiat, Fiat. Everything ends down here. I poured out in tears, commending to Jesus that blessed soul, who had so much suffered and worked for him. And while I was doing this, my sweet Jesus moved in my interior and told me, my daughter, courage. You must know that everything which that soul, so dear to me, has done, all the knowledges he has known about my will, have caused him to enclose as much light within his soul. So, each additional knowledge is a greater light that he possesses, and each knowledge places a distinct light in the soul, one more beautiful than the other, together with the seed of the distinct happiness that each light contains. In fact, in anything good that the soul can know, with her will of putting it into practice within herself, she remains in possession of the good she knows. But if she does not have the will to put the knowledges she acquires into practice, It happens as when someone touches a flower, or washes himself once with very fresh water. In that act, he shall feel the fragrance of the flower, the refreshment of the fresh water. But since he does not possess the flower or the fount of fresh water, little by little the fragrance shall vanish, as well as the good of the freshness of that water, and he shall find himself empty of that fragrance, and without the freshness he had enjoyed. Such are the knowledges when one has the good of knowing them, but does not put them into practice. Now, that soul had all the will to practice them, so much so that in seeing the great good he felt, he wanted to make them known to others by publishing them. So as long as he remained on earth, his body, more than walled up that light. But as soon as his soul went out of the prison of his body, he found himself invested with the light he possessed. And as the many seeds of happiness he possessed developed, that are the effects of the knowledges about my divine will, he began to feel the beginning of the life of true beatitudes. And diving into the eternal light of his Creator, he found himself in the celestial fatherland, in which he shall continue his mission about my will, assisting everything himself from heaven. If you knew the great difference in glory, in beauty, in happiness, that exists between the one who, upon dying, brings light from the earth, together with the seeds of many happinesses, and one who only receives it from his Creator, there is such distance as to surpass the distance between heaven and earth. Oh, if mortals knew the great good they acquire by knowing a true good, a truth, and by making it their own blood in order to absorb it in their own lives, they would compete among themselves. They would forget about everything in order to know one truth, and would lay down their lives to put it into practice. While Jesus was saying this, I saw the blessed soul of Father before me, near my bed, invested with light, suspended from the earth, fixing on me, but without telling me one word. I too felt mute before him, and Jesus added, "Look at him, how transformed he is. My will is light, and has transformed that soul into light. It is beautiful, and has given him all the tints of perfect beauty. It is holy, and he has been sanctified. My will possesses all sciences, and his soul has been invested by divine science. There is nothing that my will has not given to him." Oh, if all understood what divine will means, they would put everything aside. They would care about doing nothing else, and their whole commitment would be to do my will alone. After this I was thinking to myself, but why did blessed Jesus not concur in making a miracle for Father de Francia? And Jesus: "The miracles that God himself wants to be made, without mixing of human will, are perennial miracles, because they start from the divine font that is never exhausted, and it is enough to want them in order to receive them. This is why I did not allow that you would make the miracle of healing him, but you made for him the great miracle of letting him know my will, and he left the earth with the possession of it. And now he enjoys in the sea of the light of the divine will. And this is more than anything. Fiat. Volume 22, June 17th, 1927. How the will of God is everything. She sees Father Annibale again, who tells her of his surprises. After this, I found myself outside of myself, and while looking for my sweet Jesus, I encountered Father de Francia. He was all cheerful, and he told me, "Do you know how many beautiful surprises I found? I did not think it would be so when I was on earth, though I thought I had done good by publishing the hours of the Passion. But the surprises I found are marvelous, enchanting, of a rarity never before seen. All the words regarding the Passion of our Lord changed into light, one more beautiful than the other, all braided together. And these lights grow more and more as creatures do the hours of the Passion, so more lights add to the first. But what surprised me the most were the few sayings published by me about the divine will. Each saying changed into a sun, and these suns, investing all the lights with their rays, form such a surprise of beauty that one remains enraptured, enchanted. You cannot imagine how surprised I was at seeing myself in the midst of these lights and these suns. How content I was. And I thanked our highest good, Jesus, who had given me the occasion and the grace to do it. You too, thank him on my behalf. (1928) Volume 23, January 18th, 1928. How the manifestations on the divine will shall be the gospel of his kingdom. The issue about the writings. Necessity of the first priests of the kingdom of the Fiat. Then, in hearing this, I was thinking to myself about the big issue concerning the writings on the divine will that are in Messina, brought there by the blessed memory of Venerable Father de Francia. How myself and my other superiors absolutely want them here, while the superiors in Messina, rigorously recommended by the Venerable Father before dying, want to keep them over there for their publication, when God pleases. So we do nothing but send letters of fire back and forth, them to keep them, and us to get them back. And I was feeling all worried, bored, and tired, and was saying to myself, how could good Jesus allow all this? Who knows whether he too feels disappointed? And he, moving in my interior, told me, "My daughter, you are worried, but I am not disappointed at all. On the contrary, I enjoy in seeing the interest that priests take in these writings that shall form the kingdom of my will. This means that they appreciate the great good of them, and each one would want to keep such a great treasure with himself, to be the first to communicate it to others. And while the issue of who is going to win lasts, one approaches the other in order to consult one another on what to do. And I enjoy that more of my ministers get to know that there is this treasure so great of making known the kingdom of my divine will. And I use this to form the first priests of my coming kingdom of my Fiat. My daughter, it is a great necessity to form the first priests. They shall serve me like the apostles served me to form my church. And the ones who shall occupy themselves with these writings, in order to publish them, putting them out to print them, to make them known, shall be the new evangelists of the kingdom of my supreme will. And just as the ones who are most mentioned in my gospel are the 4 evangelists who wrote it, to their highest honor and my glory, so it shall be for those who shall occupy themselves with writing the knowledges on my will in order to publish them. Like new evangelists, there shall be greater mention of them in the kingdom of my will, to their highest honor and my great glory in seeing the order of the creature, the life of heaven on earth, the only purpose of creation, return into my bosom. Therefore, in these circumstances, I expand the circle, and like a fisherman, I catch those who must serve me for a kingdom so holy. Therefore, let me do, and do not be worried. Volume 23, February 28th, 1928. Just as God has the hierarchy of angels in heaven with 9 distinct choirs, so shall he have the hierarchy of the children of his kingdom with 9 more choirs. Condition of the late confessors, and how the memory of Father de Francia shall not be extinguished in this work. I was thinking about the holy divine volition, and 1,000 thoughts crowded my poor mind. They seemed like many stronger lights that were arising, that then unified themselves within the same light of the eternal sun of that Fiat that knows no setting. But who can say what I was thinking? I was thinking about the many knowledges spoken to me by Jesus on the divine will, and how each of them brings a divine life into the soul, with the imprint of a rarity of beauty, of happiness, but distinct from one another, that it places in common with the one who has the good of knowing it and of loving it. So I thought to myself, one knowledge more or one less, there shall be great difference between one soul and another. So I felt sorrow in remembering my late confessors, who had had so much interest in making me write what blessed Jesus would tell me on the divine will. I felt sorrow for Venerable Father de Francia, who had made so many sacrifices in coming from far away, meeting expenses for the publication, and just when things were moving forward, Jesus brought him to heaven with himself. But while my mind was wandering amidst many thoughts, such that if I wanted to tell them all, I would be too long, my sweet Jesus stretched out his arms within my interior, and spreading light, he told me, "My daughter, just as I have the hierarchy of angels, with 9 distinct choirs, so shall I have the hierarchy of the children of the kingdom of my divine Fiat. It shall have its 9 choirs, and they shall distinguish themselves from one another according to the varieties of beauties that they have acquired by knowing, some more, some less, the knowledges that pertain to my Fiat. Therefore, your confessors who have passed into the next life shall be like the prelude of the children of my will. In fact, the first one sacrificed himself very much, and worked to help the tiny little field of your soul. And even though at that time I spoke to you little about my Fiat, because first I had to dispose you, he shall be like the first herald, like the dawn that announces the day of the kingdom of my will. The second and the third confessors of yours, who so much participated, and knew in great part the knowledges of my will, and made so much sacrifice, especially the third one, who so much loved that they become known, and sacrificed himself so much in writing, shall be like the rising sun, that placing itself on its course, forms the day full of light. Those who follow shall be like the full midday of the great day of my will. According to the interest they have had and shall have, they shall be placed, some at the first hour of the day of my volition, some at the second, some at the third, and some at the full midday. And do you think that the memory of Father de Francia, his many sacrifices and desires to make my will known, to the point of initiating the publication, shall be extinguished in this great work of my divine fiat, only because I brought him with me to heaven? No, no. On the contrary, he shall have the first place, because by coming from far away, he went as though in search of the most precious thing that can exist in heaven and on earth, of the act that glorifies me the most, or rather, shall give me complete glory on the part of creatures, and they shall receive complete goods. He prepared the ground so that my divine will might be known, so much so that he spared nothing, neither expenses nor sacrifices. And even though the publication did not have its completion, by even just initiating it, he prepared the ways so that one day the work of my will in the midst of creatures can be known and have life. Who shall ever be able to destroy the fact that Father de Francia has been the first initiator in making known the kingdom of my will? And only because his life was extinguished, the publication did not have its completion. So, when this great work becomes known, his name, his memory, shall be full of glory and of splendor, and he shall have his prime act in a work so great, both in heaven and on earth. In fact, why is there a battle going on, and almost everyone yearns for victory, to win in holding the writings on my divine fiat? Because he had brought the writings with himself in order to publish them. Had it not been so, who would have talked about it? No one. And if he had not made others comprehend the importance, the great good of these writings, no one would have interested himself. Therefore, my daughter, my goodness is so great that I reward justly and superabundantly the good that the creature does, especially in this work of my will that I so much care for. What shall I not give to those who occupy and sacrifice themselves in order to place in safety the rights of my eternal fiat? I shall exceed so much in giving as to make heaven and earth astonished. On hearing this, I thought to myself, if these knowledges contain so much good, if blessed Jesus continues after my death with more knowledges on his fiat to other souls, shall a work so great not be attributed to that work? And Jesus, moving as though hurriedly in my interior, added, No, no, my daughter, just as if Father de Francia, it shall be said that he has been the first propagator, and your confessors have been cooperators, so it shall be said that the little daughter of my will has been the first and the depository of a good so great, to whom it was entrusted, and who was chosen with a special mission. We continue further in the year of our Lord, 1928. Father Annibale expressed his desire to have Luisa always in his orphanages or convents as teacher of virtue and of divine will to the nuns and the little orphans. Luisa, obliged by her confessor, left her home on the evening of October 7th, 1928, to enter the new orphanage in Curato, with the Sisters of the Divine Zeal and the orphans. She lived her solitary life in the convent for 10 years, and then on October 7th, 1938, she went back to live in a private home until her death. Volume 24, May 20th, 1928. I was concerned because of a circular I received from the House of the Divine Will, so much wanted by Venerable Father de Francia, and so longed for by him, who did not have the consolation of seeing it completed and opened for the purpose wanted by him. And now, finally, according to what the circular said, the day of its completion, probably near, was arising. So I thought to myself, is it really true that it is will of God for me to go there? And the members of this house, will they be the true little daughters of the divine will? Will they be the beginning of the rising of the divine era of the kingdom of the supreme Fiat upon earth? But while I was thinking of these and other things, my sweet Jesus moved in my interior and told me, "My daughter, each saying, work, and sacrifice that is done in my will is to obtain its divine kingdom. There are many messengers sent to the celestial fatherland that carry the divine circular and make it circulate through all the saints, the angels, the sovereign queen, and the Creator himself, giving to each one the task to prepare the different things that are needed for a kingdom so holy, so that everything may be done with decorum, with decency, and with divine nobility. So all the inhabitants of the divine fatherland, with this celestial circular in their hands, all get down to the work of fulfilling their task, of preparing each thing assigned to them. JMJ. In voluntate Dei. Deo gratias. Volume 25, October 7th, 1928. The opening of the House of the Divine Will in Corato. Simile of the birth of Jesus in Bethlehem. My entrance into it. The Eucharistic lamp and the living lamp of the one who does the divine will. The prisoner near the prisoner. Jesus' delight at this company. My Jesus, life of my poor heart, you who know in what bitternesses I find myself, come to my help. Overwhelm the little newborn of your divine volition into your flames, that you may give me again the strength to be able to begin another volume, and your divine fiat may eclipse my miserable will, that it may have life no more, and your divine will may take over, and it itself may write, with the characters of its light, that which you, my love, want me to write, and so that I may make no mistake, act as my prompter, and only if you commit yourself to accepting to be my word, thought, and heartbeat, and to lead my hand with yours, can I make the sacrifice of returning to write what you want. My Jesus, I am here, near the tabernacle of love. From that adored little door that I have the honor to gaze at, I feel your divine fibers, your heart palpitating, emitting flames and rays of endless light at each heartbeat. And in those flames, I hear your moans, your sighs, your incessant supplications, and your repeated sobs. for you want to make your will known, to give its life to all. And I feel myself being consumed with you and repeating what you do. Therefore I pray you, while you gaze at me from within the tabernacle, and I gaze at you from within my bed, to strengthen my weakness, that I may make the sacrifice of continuing to write. Now, in order to be able to say what Jesus told me, I have to make a brief mention that here in Corrado a house has been founded that was wanted and started by the venerable memory of Father Canonical Annibale Maria di Francia, and that his children, faithful to the will of their founder, have executed and given the name of House of the Divine Will, as the Venerable Father wanted. And he wanted me to enter this house. And on the first day of its opening, by their goodness, his sons and daughters, the Reverend Mothers, came to take me and brought me into a room that is such that, as the door of this room is opened, I can see the tabernacle. I can listen to Holy Mass. I am just under the gazes of my Jesus in the sacrament. Oh, how happy I feel that from now on, if Jesus wants me to continue to write, I shall write always, keeping one eye on the tabernacle and the other on the paper I write on. Therefore I pray you, my love, to assist me and to give me the strength to make the sacrifice that you yourself want. So as this house was about to be opened, one could see people, nuns, little girls, people coming and going, all in motion. I felt all impressed, and my sweet Jesus moving in my interior told me, "My daughter, this group of people whom you see all in motion for the opening of the house of my divine will is symbolic of that group of people when I wanted to be born in Bethlehem, and the shepherds were coming and going to visit me, a little baby." This pointed out to all the certainty of my birth. In the same way, this group of people, all in motion, points out the rebirth of the kingdom of my divine will. Look at how all of heaven echoes my birth, when the angels, celebrating it, announced me to the shepherds, and putting them in motion, made them keep coming to me, and I recognized in them the first fruits of the kingdom of my redemption. So now in this group of people, of little girls and nuns, I recognize the beginning of the kingdom of my divine will. Oh, how my heart exults and rejoices, and all of heaven makes feast. Just as the angels celebrated my birth, so do they celebrate the beginning of the rebirth of my Fiat in the midst of creatures. But look at how my birth was more neglected, more poor. I had not even one priest near me, but only poor shepherds. On the other hand, at the beginning of my volition, there is not only a group of nuns and little girls from out of town, and a people rushing up to celebrate the opening, but there is an archbishop and priests representing my church. This is symbol and announcement to all that the kingdom of my divine volition shall be formed with more magnificence, with greater pomp and splendor than the very kingdom of my redemption. And everyone, kings and princes, bishops and priests and peoples, shall know the kingdom of my Fiat and shall possess it. Therefore, you too, celebrate this day in which my sighs and sacrifices, and yours, to make my divine will known, see the first dawn, and hope for the sun of my divine Fiat to soon rise. Then the evening came of this day, consecrated to the Queen of the Rosary, Queen of victories and of triumphs. And this is another beautiful sign, that just as the Sovereign Lady conquered her Creator, and bejeweling him with her chains of love, she drew him from heaven to earth, to make him form the kingdom of redemption, so shall the sweet and powerful beads of her rosary make her victorious and triumphant again before the divinity, conquering the kingdom of the divine Fiat, to make it come into the midst of creatures. I had not at all thought that on that very evening I would move to the house of divine will, near my prisoner Jesus. Only I prayed him not to let me know when this would be, so as not to profane such an act with my human will, so that I might put nothing of my own, but do the divine will in everything. It was 8 o'clock in the evening, when out of the ordinary the confessor came, who prayed by the Reverend Mother Superiors, imposed out of obedience, that I should surrender, and make the superiors content. I resisted quite a bit, because I thought that if the Lord wanted so, it would be in the month of April, a warmer season, and so we would think about it then. But the confessor insisted so much that I had to surrender. So around 9:30 in the evening, I was brought to this house, near my prisoner Jesus. And this is the little story of why I find myself in the house of the divine will. Now I resume my speaking. At night, I remained alone with my Jesus in the sacrament. My eyes were fixed on the little door of the tabernacle. It seemed to me that the lamp, with its continuous flickering, was about to go out, but then it would revive again. And my heart gave a jump, fearing that Jesus might remain in the dark. And my always lovable Jesus, moving in my interior, clasped me in his arms and told me, "My daughter, do not fear, for the lamp shall not go out. And if it did go out, I have you, living lamp, a lamp that with your flickering, more than with the flickering of the Eucharistic lamp, tells me, I love you, I love you, I love you." Oh, how beautiful is the flickering of your I love you. Your flickering says love to me, and uniting with my will, from two wills we form one alone. Oh, how beautiful is your lamp, and the flickering of your I love you. It cannot be compared to the lamp that burns before my tabernacle of love. More so, since my divine will being in you, you form the flickering of your I love you in the center of the sun of my Fiat. And I see and hear, not a lamp, but a sun burning before me. My prisoner, be welcomed. You have come to keep company with your prisoner. We are both in prison, you in bed and I in the tabernacle. It is right that we be close to each other. More so, since one is the purpose that keeps us in prison, the divine will, love, souls. How pleasing shall the company of my prisoner be to me. We shall feel it together, to prepare the kingdom of the supreme Fiat. But know, my daughter, that my love has anticipated you. I was first in putting myself, prisoner, in this cell, to wait for my prisoner and your sweet company. See then how my love was first in running toward you. How I have loved you, and I love you. For in so many centuries of imprisonment in this tabernacle, I never had a prisoner who would keep me company, who would remain so very close to me. I have always been alone, or at the most in the company of souls who were not prisoners. in whom I did not see my same chains. Now, finally, the time has come for me to have a prisoner, to keep her constantly near me, under my sacramental gazes, the one whom the chains of my divine will alone keep imprisoned. A sweeter and more pleasing company could not come to me. And so, while we are together in prison, we shall occupy ourselves with the kingdom of the divine Fiat, and shall work together, and shall sacrifice ourselves together, to make it known to creatures. You have reached the end of the 17 years, Part 8. Fiat.